Okay, Body Messiah, we're going to cover another message associated with a prophecy associated with Edom. And the main reason we're covering this, and it's probably going to be the last one for a while, the reason why we're covering this is because of a commentator out there who is going on, and the last tag name is befitting of them all a day. Okay? So, respectfully, we're going to break down the prophecy given in Obadiah chapter 1. Now, I will proceed by saying that Sidrico Bible Studies and Tasha believes that everyone has free will, even descendants of Edom or Esau. Okay? And no matter what racial group that you belong to or ethnic background that you believe that you belong to, if you find yourself having the same attributes as those that are mentioned in this prophetic scripture, then you need to guard your spirit. As we read this, please try to analyze your ruach and make sure that you don't carry the same attributes as some of those arrogant Edomites. Okay? And then all is well, because God probes the heart. But you can pause this video if you'd like to read along as we begin with Obadiah chapter 1. We're going to stop in sections and explain in further detail as we go on. So let's begin. Obadiah chapter 1. The vision of Obadiah. Thus says Adonai Elohim concerning Edom. We have heard a report from Adonai. An envoy has been sent among the nations.
Arise, let us arise and come against her in battle. Behold, I will make you least among the nations. You will be greatly despised. The arrogance of your heart has deceived you. Living in the clefts of the rock, his dwelling place is lofty, saying in his heart, who shall bring me down to earth? Even if you soar like an eagle, even if you set your nest among the stars, from there I will bring you down.
Now recognize this, body of Messiah. Edom is so arrogant. These Edomites, they have made their place in the cleft of the rocks. Their places are expensive and beautiful and lofty. And they say in their heart, who's going to bring us down to earth? Okay? One of the main places that the Edomites used to reside back about 1,000 or so more years ago was in a region of here that was known as Petra. And in Petra, there were crevices dug out of the rocks, of the stone, caved out, where a lot of Edomites lived. Now, this prophecy is partially fulfilled because there's other prophecies, like when you go look in Ezekiel chapter 35, as we covered when we talked about the prophecy dealing with Magog and how Mount Seir, this region, which you won't find a lot inside a lot of geographical maps. They're not extremely specific about the actual position of Mount Seir, but we do know, based on historical documents, that there was a city called Petra where the Edomites used to stay, and it was overtaken by the Nabateans. Okay? A group of African people, I'll call it, who are nomadic, overtook that area, right? But this right here is speaking about the arrogance of Edomites who believe no one can bring them down. It even says in verse 4, which is very interesting, even if you soar like an eagle, thinking you can fly out to anywhere you want to go, even if you set your nest among the stars, from there the Most High God will bring them down. Think about all of these billionaires that are in a race to allow individual people to so-called go off into space and on these space rockets. They're trying to escape from things that they know that have been prophesied about those of them who are extremely arrogant. They have no regard for God or His word, His word. And God is saying, I don't care where you fly off to. You can try to fly to the moon or Mars or wherever. The Most High God said He will bring them down. So this is applicable to them for being so arrogant and not having any thought about the Most High God. Remember what we mentioned in the last lesson where we talked about that advice that Solomon was given in 1 Chronicles chapter 28 verse 9. And specifically, God knows every intent of man's heart. And he said, basically this advice is given to Solomon. If you forsake the Most High God, then He will forsake you. Now we're going to continue with verse 5.
If thieves came to you, if robbers by night, how ruined you would be. Would they keep stealing after they'd had enough? If grape gatherers came to you, would they not leave some gleaning?
So verse 5 is specifically talking about the selfishness of some descendants of Edom. He's saying, if robbers came, how ruined would you be? But Adonai is talking about, wouldn't that harm you and hurt you if robbers just came and took all your possessions? When it says, would you keep stealing after they had enough? There are some arrogant descendants of Edom who keep robbing and taking and absorbing resources as if they can't get enough. And there's judgment because of that. He's saying even some grape gatherers will leave a few crumbs for people, but the selfishness of those who are descendants of Edom who are arrogant. They want to absorb and take it all and disregard the Most High God, number one, and any other people. Now we're going to continue with verse 6.
How Esau will be ransacked, and how his hidden treasure searched out. All your allies will force you to the border. The men that were at peace with you will deceive you and overpower you. Those who eat your bread will set a trap under you. He has no discernment.
So, arrogant Edomites have no discernment. They think they're making allies amongst various groups of people, most of whom reside to the north in areas of Europe. Okay? Most of whom. So it's saying how he has no discernment because he has no regard. He's not trying to spiritually discern who may come at them and try to destroy them, right? When we had the lesson, the why, in lesson 11, where we specifically talk about some prophecies against Edom, there is one verse that we covered throughout time about how some Edomite descendants who were allied with the descendants of Israel and helped to fight off the Moabites or what have you, all of a sudden they turn around and want to ally with some Moabites, some descendants of Moab. But those folks turned around and attacked and destroyed them. They had no discernment because some of their minds were still hell-bent on revenge or hatred towards Jacob. God is not man. God is not going to lie. What he prophesied here has happened throughout times to descendants of Esau. Even when you see the prophecy dealing with Gog of Magog, the people who are in the United Nations region defined Israel trust even more so than those who reside to the north, than any other people in any other region, right? But the way the prophecy unfolds about the prophecy against Gog of Magog, he don't care. He's going to come down here through to try and destroy everything, right? But even today, you have in this United Nations defined region of Israel where they don't want to provide weapons to help the people of Ukraine to fight against Russia because they don't want to offend Russia. These are deep ingrained, rooted connections that they had. Okay? But to no avail. Now we'll go on and read verse 8.
In that day, will I not destroy the wise man from Edom, and understanding from the hill country of Esau? Your mighty man, O Teman, will be shattered. So everyone will be cut off from the hill country of Esau by slaughter. Because of your violence to your brother Jacob, shame will cover you, and you will be cut off forever.
Okay. So this is a self-fulfilling prophecy. All of the wise men, God is mocking like, you think you're so smart, so intelligent. But he said he's going to destroy the hill country of Esau. Over and again, throughout Bible scriptures, the hill country of Esau has been defined as Mount Seir. And like I said, you don't exactly know based on when you try to type in and search for the exact location of Mount Seir, it's not specific. So, it could be further down here, it could be further up here, it could be over here. But anyway, that's the hill country of Esau. So God is saying, the reason is because of your violence against your brother Jacob. Shame is going to cover you, and you're going to be cut off forever. The Edomites, with the attributes of the judgment that's going to fall on them, have the attributes of despising and having violence against Jacob, the descendants of Israel. And if that is a part of your spirit, I don't care if you consider yourself a descendant of Edom or not, then your judgment is sure. Yes, it's etched in stone. God gives the reason for that. Because of your violence against your brother Jacob. So if you think you have that within you, that animosity, that bitterness and violence and hatred towards Jacob, then you better purge your spirit of that and try and do right by the descendants of Israel. Bottom line, God's word is not going to change to accommodate people who are being hard-headed against his standard. Now we're going to continue with verse 11.
On the day that you stood aloof, on the day that strangers carried away his wealth, while foreigners entered his gates and cast lots for Jerusalem, you were just like one of them. You should not look down on your brother on the day of his disaster, nor should you rejoice over the children of Judah in the day of their destruction. You should not speak proudly in the day of their distress. Do not enter the gate of my people in the day of their disaster. Yes, you do not gloat over their misery in the day of their disaster. Yes, you do not loot their wealth in the day of their calamity. Do not stand in the crossroad to cut down his fugitives, and do not imprison survivors in the day of his distress.
Body Messiah, how much clearer can that be? Arrogant descendants of Edom. If you consider yourself a descendant of Edom, pay close attention to verse 11 through 14. God is chastising verbally and letting them know, do not enter the gate of my people. Do not gloat over their misery. If this is in your spirit, this prophecy is about you. All of the resources that we mentioned regarding the land of Canaan, the promised land that God promised patriarch Abraham, were you among those who gloated when all of their spoils were taken from them over the centuries, the abuse that happened, the people drug off into captivity, my ancestors? Did you gloat and rejoice where all of their resources were being taken? Did you glorify the misery that they've gone through? If that is a part of your spirit, then yes, this is about you. Yes, this prophecy is going to be fulfilled. So get it right with the Most High God. And I give this advice, and I have to people who consider themselves, for some reason, descendants of Edom, or even white people who have an antagonistic, hateful spirit towards black and brown people. You can either love us or leave us alone. If you cannot be supportive and do right by the standards of the Most High God, where He tells us to treat all people right, and if you have a specific bitter spirit and resentment towards the black and brown descendants of Israel, then you better get ready, because God's prophecy is going to be fulfilled. He did not sit around, and as we've said before throughout biblical racial reconciliation, those lessons, and said that He glorifies oppression. All right? He doesn't glorify that. So no man on this planet should be glorifying the destruction of another people by another people. God is the only one in control. He is the one who builds up kingdoms and tear them down. But based on the arrogance of some Edomites, they think it's by their hand. Okay? And they think they don't have an account for that, but you do. If you consider yourself attributes. Now, I also want to mention to you that we have a lesson called, and I didn't get to mention it during the last particular message that we have, TBON Lesson 2, which is Africa Throughout the Bible, and there's Part 10. Now, the main reason that we feel that you cannot determine beyond a shadow of a doubt who you're descended from, if you go look at that lesson, we reveal to you how some other people who were most likely also descendants of Esau came in and allied with the descendants of Israel to overtake the land. And we showed that through some of their heritage and the namesake. So go back and review that lesson, the latter half of that lesson, midway, and you can start there and you'll see what we're talking about. So this is the reason why we say if you have these attributes, beware, these judgments are coming to pass. And specifically for you, if you have a hateful spirit towards the descendants of Israel. Now we're going to continue with verse 15.
The house of Jacob will be a fire. For the day of Adonai is near against all the nations. As you have done, it shall be done to you. Your dealing will return on your own head. For just as you have drunk on my holy mountain, so shall all the nations drink continually. Yes, they will drink and gulp down, and then be as though they have never existed.
Okay, so the judgment that's happening is because just as you did, just like you dealt with the descendants of Israel, your brother, Jacob, it's going to fall back on your own head. This is what this judgment is about. God is not randomly picking a people or individual. He's specifically talking about descendants of Edom who have this arrogant demeanor about them and no regard for God or His standard. This is who He's talking about. And yes, there's judgment because of that. Now, as we said before, everyone has free will, but it's your free will to choose to partake in the same and have the same behavior as mentioned in these prophetic words. And then you're choosing for your outcome to be the same way as what's being prophesied. Now we're going to continue with verse 17.
But on Mount Zion there will be a deliverance, and it will be holy. Then the house of Jacob will dispossess those who dispossess them. The house of Jacob will be a fire, and the house of Joseph a flame, while the house of Esau will be a straw. They will set them on fire and consume them, so there will be no survivors of the house of Esau.
Now listen to that scripture. He's talking about a specific people with specific attributes just as this. One thing I want to draw attention to for verse 17 and 18. In verse 17 it says, their deliverance, it will be holy. So yes, it's God ordained and foretold and destined. It says the house of Jacob will dispossess those who dispossess them. I don't feel that that's just specific to this region here. I feel it's specific to other areas. When you read the prophecies that are given in Jeremiah chapter 30, and we go over that regarding descendants of Jacob, He told Jacob, I'm going to plunder those who plundered you, Jacob. So that means anywhere in any nation where they continuously plundered the descendants of Israel, there's a time of dispossession those people. It's over and over throughout prophetic scripture. The Most High God is stating that. And we're just giving Jeremiah chapter 30 as one example. God told the descendants of Israel, of Jacob, that I will plunder those who plundered you. And this is going to be fulfilled. And I do not believe it's just specific to the region of Mount Seir, the hill country of Esau at all. Because a people is going to overtake that area, but they're not really specific to the descendants of Israel, as we're going to see soon. But we have to be cautious of that. He says, so there will be no survivors. Keep in mind, when Magog comes down against to take the risk of the promised land, there is going to be a slaughter. This scripture to me, the deliverance is holy, coincides with that. When it says they're going to be consumed by fire, go back and look at when we go over the prophecy against Gog of Magog, and we talk about the region of Mount Seir. They're going to be burning fires for 7 months, burying the dead for 7 months, burning fires of all their weapons and everything for 7 years. This is what I believe this is talking about. The slaughter that's going to be happen because of the judgments that's going to come against them and all those in the region that try and come and take the resources of the descendants of Israel. Now we're going to continue with verse 19.
Then those of the Negev will possess the hill country of Esau, and those of the foothills of the Philistines. Then they will possess the territory of Ephraim and the territory of Samaria, while Benjamin will possess the Gilead. The exiles of the army of Bnei Israel will possess what belonged to the Canaanites, as far as Zarephath, while the exiles of Jerusalem, who are in Sepharad, will possess the cities of the Negev. The victorious will go up on Mount Zion to judge the hill country of Esau. The kingdom shall be nice.
Now, this is a lot of regions and people that it's talking about. It says those of the Negev, and Body Messiah, I did my best to try and squeeze it in. But when I've gone to look at maps of where they're defining the deserts of the Negev, it's a region that's along the edge here. They have Negev deserts here. Okay, so it said those of the Negev possess the hill country of Esau, which is Mount Seir, in this region. Excuse me. It said, and those of the foothills of the Philistines. The Philistines are along this region. The United Nations defined Israel, right? It says they will possess the territory of Ephraim and the territory of Samaria. And I tried to squeeze it in here. Samaria and what they state is part of Ephraim is along this region here that you see on maps today. But we know that's the United Nations defined region, okay? It says that exiles of the army of Israel will possess what belongs to the Canaanites as far as Zarephath. Now we know the land of Canaan, the promised land, is defined here, but this was also considered a part of northern Africa. And on maps today, they're saying Zarephath is somewhere up in this region here, a little bit above the United Nations defined Israel, along that edge, okay? So it also says the exiles of Jerusalem who are in Sarfad. I think it's Sepharad. I'm pronouncing it wrong. Sepharad. Sepharad. This Sepharad was biblically known as Spain. They're saying the exiles that were in Jerusalem here are going to possess the Negev over here. And this has partially been fulfilled. There's a prayer warrior friend of mine named Miss Ann, and she's I may attach that video out there. And there's a group, I don't exactly remember the name, but they go into detail about how those who were called the Moors, or those who were actual black and brown Hebrew descendants of David, who are scattered all throughout Spain, France, Italy, and specifically here. They go into detail with the historical documents about those actual exiles, and I may attach it. But they have been those who were exiled from Europe. Some were sent back down into Africa, and cast off into slavery and taken in the slave trade, and some were able to flee and go back to this region with the help of some of their Ishmaelite brethren, who helped to get them out of those out of captivity up under the Roman Catholic Church, out of their little torture chambers. So I may attach that. But God is stating this, how this basic region is going to be overtaken. And it says specifically in verse 21, the victorious will go up to Mount Zion to judge the hill country of Esau. So the victorious is going to judge the hill country of Esau. And it says the very last sentence, then the kingdom shall be Adonai's. About a Messiah, I don't know how much clearer that can be. But all we can say to you, for those of you who consider yourself Edomites or descendants of Edom, make sure you make your election sure spiritually. Surgical Bible studies and Tasha is not going to change the view that everyone has free will. But specifically, God is stating the attributes of those who are choosing to still do treacherously towards the descendants of Israel. He's speaking to those who have an arrogant, prideful spirit, which they have no regard for the Most High God. And what he states, they think they can go about their way, and they're high and mighty and could never be brought down, literally, to earth. So if you are part of that people or have those attributes, like I said, no matter what your racial or ethnic background is, you better guard your spirit, because God's words are true and they're going to be fulfilled. Well, Obadiah Messiah, this is the end of this particular message. And I hope that it's something that you have found in here that you might have not seen before. And I pray that it draws you closer to the Most High God and the truth of His Word. Well, this is the end of this lesson, and like I always say, may Adonai Elohim cover and surround you and your family, shield and protect you all, and envelop you all with His shalom peace. Goodbye.